I don't want to do reality, because reality never runs smooth.
He's not a man of fake smiles. He doesn't pretend to like you. When Nick Nolte shuts you out, you know it, and he never lets you back in.
No, she didn't want to touch me. She didn't want anything to do with me.
For 5 decades, Nolte worked on instinct. He didn't need gossip to know who didn't belong. He valued grit over charm and loyalty over hype. Cross that line, you were done, quietly, permanently. He didn't shout. He didn't make a scene. Just a long, cold look, and you were gone. This wasn't ego. It was survival. A radar built to protect the work, because in his world, not everyone deserved the same room. Some actors earned his trust, but 6 of them? They lit a fuse that never burned out. 48 hours. The Prince of Tides. Affliction. Warrior. You don't last that long by playing nice. You last by knowing exactly who to keep out, because when Nolte hated working with you, everyone knew. These are the 6 actors Nick Nolte hated working with the most. Number 1. Julia Roberts. Some actors find their rhythm together. Others can't even find the beat. Nick Nolte and Julia Roberts never found it. In 1994, I Love Trouble had everything a studio wanted. America's most bankable actress paired with a respected veteran known for bringing weight and credibility to every frame. The pitch was simple. Light-hearted romance with an edge. But the edge came off camera, and it cut both ways. From the very first table read, the gap between them was obvious. Nolte worked like a craftsman, precise, prepared, every scene mapped out in his head before the cameras rolled. Roberts thrived on energy, on improvisation, on keeping things loose. For Nolte, that looseness wasn't freedom, it was chaos. Nolte once said, "Professionalism isn't optional, it's the job." It wasn't said directly to her, not in public, but on set, everyone knew who it was aimed at. One early morning shoot cemented the tone for the rest of the film. Nolte was in place, blocking done, lines rehearsed. Roberts was still in her trailer, laughing with her team. When she finally stepped on set, Nolte didn't raise his voice. He just looked at her, long enough for everyone to feel it, then went straight back to his mark. That was how he handled conflict. No shouting, no theatrics, just a quiet shift that froze the room. Over time, the distance became structural. Reports circulated that certain 2 shots were done with stand-ins, not because of scheduling conflicts, but because they didn't want to share the space any more than necessary. Roberts didn't keep her feelings under wraps either. On the press tour, she called Nolte completely disgusting. His answer was as short as it was sharp. "She's not a nice person." One production assistant remembered a freezing night shoot where Roberts sat outside alone rather than eat at the craft table near Nolte. Nolte didn't move, didn't comment. He kept eating like she wasn't there. Later in filming, a reporter on set asked Nolte if their on-screen chemistry reflected real life. His answer was a quiet, deliberate line. "Love's not in the script for me." By wrap day, the crew had stopped trying to smooth things over. They finished the final scenes, packed up, and left. No toasts, no hugs, no backstage photos for the press. Just 2 separate trailers, 2 separate cars, 2 separate exits. Years later, when asked if he regretted how it went, Nolte called the feud absurd, but never walked back his words. Roberts never softened hers either. In an industry where grudges sometimes fade, this one didn't. They've never shared a frame since. No unexpected cameos, no reunion projects, not even a polite nod at an awards show. For Nolte, once the bridge is burned, there's no rebuilding. And for Julia Roberts, that bridge was gone before the premiere even hit theaters. Number 2, Eddie Murphy. Some on-screen pairings feel like lightning in a bottle. Others are more like fire and gasoline. Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy were both. When 48 Hours hit theaters in 1982, it looked like the birth of a great duo. Murphy, the rising comedy star with razor-sharp wit. Nolte, the seasoned actor who could switch from charm to menace in a heartbeat. The mix worked on screen, rough edges clashing in a way that made audiences lean in. But behind the scenes, those edges were sharper than anyone knew. From the first day on set, Nolte respected Murphy's raw talent. What he didn't like was how unpredictable that talent could be. Holter was a method man. No wasted motion, no throwaway lines. Murphy thrived on improvisation, throwing out new jokes every take. For Holter, it meant constantly recalibrating. Holter once said, "You can be loose, but you can't be sloppy." It wasn't a public jab, but insiders knew it came after a morning of Murphy going off script. The director loved it, Holter less so. Tension spiked during a bar scene that required multiple takes. Murphy was riffing, the crew was laughing, but Holter kept his eyes fixed on the table, waiting for the cue. When they finally cut, Holter reportedly muttered to a grip, "It's not stand-up, it's a movie." That became the quiet rhythm of the shoot, Murphy pushing boundaries, Holter pulling them back. Neither wanted to admit it, but each thought the other's approach slowed the process. One assistant remembered a night shoot when Holter arrived to find Murphy holding court with extras, cracking jokes and delaying the setup. Holter stood there, arms crossed, until the laughter died down. Then he stepped past Murphy without a word. Murphy later addressed it in an interview, saying they were two very different kinds of actors. Holter's take was more blunt. "We were playing different games." By the end of filming, the distance was obvious. Publicly, they smiled for cameras, gave joint interviews, and talked about the fun they'd had. Privately, they didn't spend a minute together off-set. The sequel talks came almost immediately after 48 Hours became a hit. Studios wanted a franchise. Holter wasn't so sure. He agreed to another 48 Hours in 1990, but sources say he laid down stricter boundaries, no extended improv that would derail scenes, no major rewrites without his input. The second shoot ran smoother, but the energy was different. The chemistry was still there for audiences, but the camaraderie was gone. Between takes, Holter kept to himself. Murphy stuck with his entourage. For Holter, it wasn't personal, at least not in the way most people think. It was about control, rhythm, and a kind of discipline he believed the work demanded. Murphy's brilliance was undeniable, but so was the clash in their process. They haven't shared a screen since. Hollywood tried to reunite them more than once, but Holter never bit. In his mind, 48 Hours was lightning in a bottle, and you don't open the bottle twice. Number 3. Tom Sizemore. Some actors bring intensity to a role. Tom Sizemore brought it everywhere. On screen, that made him magnetic. Off screen, it could make him exhausting, especially for someone like Nick Nolte. The two first crossed paths in the early 1990s on the set of Blue Chips. Nolte was playing a jaded basketball coach, Sizemore a shady booster looking to manipulate the game. The roles fit them perfectly, disciplined veteran against unpredictable hustler. The problem? That dynamic didn't stop when the cameras stopped rolling. From the first week, Nolte saw the signs. Sizemore was a powerhouse when the director called action, but getting there was another story. He'd wander from the set between takes, joke with crew members when lighting was being set, or disappear for stretches of time. Nolte, who valued efficiency and focus, had little patience for it. Nolte once said, "The work is the easy part. Getting everyone ready to do it, that's the hard part." For Nolte, Sizemore made that hard part harder. A key scene, a tense parking lot confrontation, took half a day longer than scheduled. Not because of the weather, not because of technical issues, but because Sizemore kept altering his delivery, throwing Nolte curveballs mid-take. The director loved the energy. Nolte didn't. Between takes, Nolte reportedly told a production assistant, "This isn't jazz. We're not here to jam. We're here to hit the notes." Their differences in approach created a subtle but constant tension. Nolte kept his distance during downtime, often retreating to his trailer to avoid the noise and chaos Sizemore seemed to thrive in. The breaking point came midway through production. Sizemore arrived late to set after a lunch break, holding up a scene with dozens of extras and a full camera crew in position. Nolte, already in costume and waiting, didn't say a word to Sizemore. Instead, he turned to the director and said, "Some people don't know the cost of 5 wasted minutes." From then on, Nolte avoided one-on-one scenes unless absolutely necessary. They finished Blue Chips professionally, but the atmosphere never thawed. Years later, Sizemore would speak glowingly of Holter's talent, calling him a force of nature. Nolte was less complimentary. It wasn't that Nolte disliked Sizemore as a person, It was that Sizemore represented everything Holter tried to keep off a set: unpredictability, distraction, and a disregard for schedule. Hollywood later tried to pair them again for a crime drama in the early 2000s. Holter passed without hesitation. To him, blue chips had been enough. For Holter, a set was a fragile thing. Every minute mattered. Every choice mattered. Sizemore had his own method, his own rhythm, and his own storms, and Holter didn't want to weather them twice. They never worked together again, and in Holter's mind, that was less a grudge than a professional safeguard. Because for Nick Nolte, protecting the work wasn't negotiable. And once you broke that trust, there was no second season, no reunion call, just silence. Number 4. Sharon Stone. Some actors never even make it to the starting line together. Nick Nolte and Sharon Stone never got out of the gate. They were supposed to work together in the early 2000s, a high-profile thriller about a politician's downfall. Stone had been approached for the female lead, sharp, seductive, dangerous. Nolte was already signed on as the male lead, but before the first table read, the entire project fell apart. People close to the production say the collapse started with script changes. Stone, known for shaping her roles, wanted rewrites, deeper backstory, more control over certain plot beats. Nolte was old school. He believed in serving the script as written, trusting the words on the page. Nolte once said, "The job isn't to rewrite the story, the job is to tell it." That wasn't just theory, it was a rule for him, and anyone who broke it was going to meet resistance. Negotiations dragged on for weeks. Stone pushed for creative input. Nolte pushed back, quietly but firmly. One producer remembered a tense meeting where Nolte flipped through a marked-up script and said, "This isn't the movie I signed on for." That was the moment it became clear. They weren't going to find common ground. The tension wasn't just about the script. Stone's reputation for commanding a set clashed with Holter's belief that no one actor should dominate the process. For Nolte, the work was a collaboration. For Stone, it was about shaping her performance above all else. At one point, according to crew insiders, Nolte told the director privately, "You can only have one captain on a ship, and I'm not sailing under hers." Within days, Stone exited the project. Officially, it was due to creative differences. Unofficially, it was because two strong-willed actors refused to bend. Without her, the studio pulled the plug entirely. They never worked together afterward. There were rumors years later about a potential pairing in a political drama, but Nolte reportedly declined before talks even began. For Nolte, the decision wasn't personal, at least not in the tabloid sense. It was about avoiding a set where battles over control could overshadow the story itself. He'd spent too many years protecting the work to risk another war before cameras even rolled. Stone went on to other projects. Nolte did the same. But the near miss became one of those Hollywood what-ifs, a pairing that could have been electric on screen but would have burned hot and fast off it. And in Holter's world, that kind of fire wasn't worth the price. Number 5. Kevin Dillon. Some actors come prepared for every beat. Others need time to find it. For Nick Nolte, Kevin Dillon took too much time. They worked together in the early 1990s on the war drama A Midnight Clear. The story was tense, the tone somber, a film that demanded total focus from its cast. Nolte, known for his discipline, arrived each day with his scenes memorized, his emotional beats mapped out, and his attention locked in. Dillon was talented but more relaxed, often warming into his performance during takes instead of hitting the ground running. Nolte once said, "You can't find the scene while the camera's rolling, you have to bring it with you." That line, according to crew members, was muttered after a morning of multiple restarts caused by flubbed lines. In one critical scene, an emotional standoff between soldiers, Nolte reportedly nailed his part on the first 2 takes. Dillon needed 6. With every restart, Holter's patience thinned. Between takes, he would step away, pacing in the cold, quietly running his lines again. One day, after yet another delay, Nolte told the assistant director, "Momentum is everything. Lose it once, you spend the whole day chasing it." It wasn't that Nolte disliked Dillon personally. By all accounts, Dillon was friendly, easygoing, and well-liked by the crew. But Nolte had little tolerance for actors who, in his view, weren't fully ready when they stepped on set. Tensions came to a head during a night shoot in heavy snow. Conditions were miserable: numb fingers, fogging lenses, and breath turning to ice in the air. Holter was ready to push through in as few takes as possible. Dylan, struggling with his lines, called for multiple resets. Holter stood there, snow collecting on his shoulders, eyes fixed on the ground. When they finally wrapped the scene hours later, Holter left without a word. Later, reflecting on the shoot, Holter summed it up simply: "If you're not prepared, you're not respecting the story." From that point on, he kept his interactions with Dylan to the bare minimum required by the script. No off-camera banter, no casual chats between setups. Years later, Dylan would speak warmly about his time on A Midnight Clear, praising the ensemble cast. Holter was more reserved. They never worked together again, not because of open hostility, but because Holter avoided repeating situations where he felt the work suffered from lack of preparation. In Holter's world, talent wasn't enough. You had to bring discipline, respect for the crew's time, and readiness for every scene. Dylan, for all his skill, didn't meet that bar in Holter's eyes. And once Holter decided you couldn't keep up, you didn't get another chance to try. Number 6. Tim Roth. Some actors use intensity to lift a scene. Others let it spill into the whole set. For Nick Nolte, Tim Roth's intensity was a double-edged sword. They worked together on the sprawling war epic The Thin Red Line in the late 1990s. The project was huge, a stacked cast, weeks of location shooting, and a director who encouraged deep immersion in character. For Roth, that meant living in his role, on and off camera. For Holter, it meant friction. Holter once said, "You have to know where the performance ends and the work begins." That philosophy clashed with Roth's method. He stayed in character between takes, often avoiding casual conversation and sometimes keeping the same simmering hostility his role demanded. Holter respected commitment, but he believed downtime was for regrouping, not for carrying tension into every corner of the set. One day, during a tense group scene, Roth insisted on multiple run-throughs without cameras rolling, wanting to build the energy. Holter, already in full costume under the blistering sun, saw it differently. After the third repetition, he reportedly said to the script supervisor, "We're not building energy, we're burning daylight." The shoot continued, but small frictions stacked up. Roth's habit of improvising physical movements, stepping closer in a scene, cutting off another actor's line with his own, threw off Holter's rhythm. While the director liked the unpredictability, Holter found it disruptive. During one pivotal exchange, Roth altered his delivery entirely, taking the scene in a darker direction without warning. Holter adjusted in the moment. He always did. But afterward, in the quiet of his trailer, he told a visiting friend, "If you're going to throw a punch, at least let me see it coming." By the film's wrap, Holter and Roth remained civil, but there was no real connection. They spoke when the work demanded it, but otherwise kept to their own circles. When the movie premiered, critics praised both performances, noting the palpable tension between them. Audiences assumed it was just the characters. Those who'd been on set knew better. That tension didn't end when the director yelled, "Cut." For Holter, the problem wasn't Roth's talent. He knew Roth was gifted. It was the collision of two approaches, one built on precision, the other on unpredictability. They haven't crossed paths on a set since, not because of a public feud, but because Holter had no interest in repeating a process that, to him, took more energy than it gave back. In the end, Roth became another name on a short but permanent list, actors who could shine on screen but couldn't fit into Holter's rhythm, and in Holter's world, rhythm was everything. Nick Nolte didn't shout across sets. He didn't storm off. He just leaned back, folded his arms, and made sure you never got that call again. Some actors lose their spot because they can't deliver. But these 6? They had the skill. What they didn't have was alignment. That invisible sync Nolte needed to trust a scene partner. That split-second understanding that makes a performance breathe. And when that connection broke, you weren't just off the project, you were erased from his playbook. So who do you think almost landed on Holter's silent blacklist, or maybe belonged there? Drop your guess in the comments. And if you want a front row seat to more behind-the-scenes rivalries, Hollywood doesn't put in the press kits. Like, subscribe, and join the channel for member-only deep dives. Because in Nick Nolte's world, talent might open the door, but only trust kept you inside.